wherever you are in the world. Here in Vermont, it's 3:30 in the afternoon, and I know that we have students in the audience from many different countries, as well as regions of the United States. I hope that you're all staying safe, and I appreciate your commitment to engaging in your college search process in this virtual environment. Thanks for your interest in Middlebury, and thanks for tuning in to the third installment of our summer Wednesday webinar series. Today, you'll have a chance to meet some of our faculty. My name is Michelle Nelson. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm an Associate Director of Admissions here at Middlebury. I'll be moderating today's panel, and I'm excited to introduce you to 6 professors from a variety of curricular areas here at the college. At Middlebury, over 300 faculty members teach courses across 47 departments and programs, as well as 8 interdisciplinary minors. Our faculty are at the core of providing students with an immersive learning environment and close mentorship throughout their 4 years here. We hope that this sampling of faculty voices, experiences, and perspectives will help you get a better sense for the type of academic experience we offer. We'll begin the session with about 15 minutes of introductions, and then we'll move to answering your questions for about 30 more minutes. You can submit your questions at any time via the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to get to as many questions as we can in the time allotted. And now I'll turn it over to our panelists. Alex, can you please get us started?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Draper, and I teach in the theater department here at Middlebury. So welcome. And I'm just going to talk very briefly about why the liberal arts and why that may be the structure that you're looking at for your college experience. And for me, what separates it from more specific kinds of, or in my case, BFA programs for theater, or just more specific kinds of focused learning, is that it really fosters creative, collaborative problem-solving skills that can be applied anywhere. So the way classes are taught and the way the classes speak to each other for any student here allows students to have ideas bounce off each other and have those ideas bounce into a different class and feed into what they're learning there in ways that are very rewarding. I know I'm an actor and also a teacher, and for me, being a lifelong student is the most important thing. And I think that in some ways that starts with the kind of liberal arts education where you're always committed to learning new things about whatever piques your curiosity. So I think the breadth that is asked of students here both feeds curiosity and fosters curiosity that serves students for the rest of their lives. So that's my 2 cents on liberal arts.
Thank you. Ilaria.
Mute. Hello, everybody. My name is Ilaria Borghi. I teach in the Italian department, and I so wish I could see you all, but I'm very happy to be talking to you. I, as you can see here from my accent, I moved here from Italy in 1997, and I taught my first class at the college in 1999. I am very lucky to be teaching Italian, the most beautiful language, and in a wonderful environment. There's many things that I love about teaching language. One is Vermont can feel a little bit of a remote and isolated place, but not only through languages, but for sure through languages, we really connect to many different cultures. And I find that so exciting for me as a teacher, and I see it also in the students. It forces us, learning a new language, especially if you learn it from scratch, forces us to rethink a lot of things about ourselves, about the way we communicate. And I find that a very special process that gives us, that enriches us in many, many different ways. And one of the things I really love about teaching language, especially when I teach the first year, is that I have my students 5 days a week. So I basically sequester them for a full semester. And that gives me really a beautiful opportunity to connect with them. And I think this is something that it's very, very emphasized here at Middlebury, and it's true not only for languages, but in general, is this connection between professors and students. And it's something that I see, you know, in my department and in all other departments that I have the opportunity to see or to go to, is how, you know, the doors are open, and there's so often conversations, be it about academics, but not only between students and professors. And I think this adds, at least for me, it really adds an extra level of connection that is not only the academic one, but really getting to know each other and working together, thinking together. So this is something that I appreciate every day in my work. I feel very lucky that way. Thank you.
Okay, Pete.
All right, my name is Pete Nelson. I teach in the geography department, and I use he, him, his pronouns. As Michelle indicated in the introduction, we have a really robust curriculum with lots of different departments, majors, and interdisciplinary programs. And one of the ways in which that could be intimidating or it could appear to be intimidating to incoming students. So we have a very deliberate advising structure and system that helps students navigate our curriculum and figure out what a reasonable pathway into and through the curriculum is. So right off the bat, students enroll in their first semester in a first-year seminar, and the first-year seminar instructor acts as their academic advisor until they declare a major. So before even arriving on campus, students will have interaction with their first-year seminar instructor and start that advising relationship. And there'll be components of that advising relationship that are transactional, like what are the prerequisites that I need so I can take Chem 104 in my second semester. So there's some of that, but more importantly, that student-advisor relationship is one in which students have a faculty member that is invested in kind of their whole education, not just navigating their courses, but how are they developing as students and as individuals as they pass through their 4 years at Middlebury. The added benefit of having your first-year seminar instructor act as your academic advisor is you see that person at least twice, many times 3 times a week. So there's a structural built-in check-ins with your advisor. Then early on in your sophomore year, generally before the end of the fall semester in your sophomore year or your third semester, if you enroll as a FAB, you declare a major, and the advising relationship pivots from your first-year seminar instructor to your advisor within your major department. But that person is equally as connected with you as your first-year seminar instructor. And as Ilaria said, the faculty really enjoy the student-faculty interactions. So you will have a formal academic advisor, but you can get academic advising from any member of the faculty as you're trying to figure out what are the most productive sort of pathways that will enhance your educational experience.
Sujata.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sujata Moti. I'm a professor of gender, sexuality, and feminist studies, and I'm also the dean of the faculty. I arrived in Middlebury from teaching at a big research university, and one of the things I really loved about teaching at Middlebury and the liberal arts enterprise has been our capacity to both teach and learn across the curriculum. And as a matter of fact, as Alex, Ilaria, and Pete have pointed out, one of the big strengths of the liberal arts education is that we really emphasize the breadth of learning, even as you specialize in particular areas. So, and what this means is that students can learn both in specific majors, but they can also, if you have multiple interests, you don't know quite how to choose or narrow down your specialization, you can actually have a minor. You can also have double majors, you can have joint majors. And in the kinds of fields that I study, which are all interdisciplinary, what often ends up happening is that we have students who often double major. So for instance, I teach classes on things such as social media campaigns and how that facilitates certain kinds of, let's say, feminist movements. I teach courses on cinema, on global gender concerns, etc. And what this means is, because of the kinds of courses we craft, if I were to teach a course on, let's say, a detective drama, I will have students from across chemistry who will actually be able to teach me, and as well as the other students, how the detective is using particular very specific chemical formula to do certain things. I've also had computer science students show me precisely how CGI works in the Sherlock Holmes dramas and how that is different. So in some ways, one of the big things about, the most exciting things about the liberal arts education is I am learning in the process of teaching, and both students and faculty are interlocutors in this project. And we learn together, we can enrich each other. And the other thing I would emphasize, which I've loved, is the immersive learning that we encourage on this campus. And this immersive learning can take place in a couple different ways. One of my favorites is that for the last 3 years, I've been taking a bunch of students to India to teach Afghan high school students. And these are students from across the curriculum who come there because they're interested in educating girls. And it radically revises how we think about education. We take education for granted. Once you encounter these Afghan girls, you think about education radically differently. And this has meant that it feeds into the kinds of senior work, the thesis projects our students have done. And to me, that it's that kind of immersive, cutting across disciplines, senior work, this intense faculty-student interactions that are what excite me about Middlebury College. And I think if you were to come here, you'll find these are the things which make us so special.
Thank you. We have 2 more introductions to go, and I just want to remind students to please start leaving your questions for us in the Q&A box, because we're almost to the point where we'll do some Q&A. AJ.
Hi, I'm AJ Vasilio. I teach in the chemistry and biochemistry department. It's kind of nice to follow up after that, because I love teaching at Middlebury for most of the reasons that were already mentioned, the students, but also the faculty that we get to teach with. So one of the questions that we often get asked, or my students ask me, is, well, what is the difference between, let's say, a BA and a BS? So a Bachelor of Arts versus a Bachelor of Science. And a lot of the times they're interested. So if I come to Middlebury and am I going to be as well prepared to get a job or go on to graduate school in the sciences or work in pharmaceuticals or industry? And it's my favorite question to answer, because you're more prepared than you ever would think you'd be. And I think that one of my favorite things is to tell students how an education that you get at Middlebury, because of its sort of breadth and exposure to so many different disciplines, and really the curriculum is designed that way so that you can double in a language and in the sciences, or just take classes that are interesting, that always bring value to whatever experience you have going forward. But this is a common question that sometimes students interested in science face. And so my last 2 students just happens to be graduated spring 20 in my research lab, and spring 19 both went to Caltech in chemistry PhD programs. And so I always like to say, you could do that. That's not bad, right? You don't need to go to an R1 school. In fact, you're going to be stronger educated, in my opinion, from a Middlebury. And then we have students that go right and work at places like ExxonMobil. And then we have students that get Fulbrights to teach in, sort of, because they double majored in science and language, and it makes them even more competitive. So I think the Middlebury education prepares you immensely for almost anything you want to do. And I actually think, because it's so broad in its nature, and because you get the liberal arts background and the advising that Pete spoke so highly about, you really get a lot of opportunities that I think you wouldn't necessarily get at big sort of research schools, like often where we come from as faculty to Middlebury. So yeah, I love it. And I love not just the relationships with the students at Middlebury, but I love those relationships that continue after they leave Middlebury, because you're complete and utterly invested in only their future. You want to see them do the best they can do at whatever graduate school or whatever job they go to. There's no sort of, other than getting that sort of joy of them doing that. And so it's really quite fun. And so that's probably one of my favorite things about Middlebury is watching these students land in these incredible places that they sort of wanted to be in, or maybe didn't know they wanted to go to, and found that path why they were here. So that's sort of one of my favorite pieces about working here and with students like you, if you come.
And James.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about, my name is James Chase Sanchez. I'm a professor in writing and rhetoric. Introduce myself first. I am interested in research, white supremacy, protest, and memory. So I've taught at 3 different schools, and at 2 schools prior to coming here, I felt like I had to constantly pull students into conversations that I was having in the classroom, or to try to get them engaged in certain material. So I assumed once I was hired here out of graduate school, that would be a very similar phenomenon, but it was the exact opposite. I am always so surprised by how engaged students are. So for instance, I teach a class called Race, Rhetoric, and Protest, where students write about and research different protest movements historically and in contemporary terms, but it often asks them to participate in different protests. Some students have sometimes went off into broader Vermont, into their home communities to participate in protests, but just last fall semester, my students independently got together and held a protest for staff on campus to ask for an increase in staff wages, which was a very extraordinary measure solely done by my students. And constantly these sort of conversations and people participating in these sort of activist groups is really an important part of the Middlebury experience. I also teach a class on public memory where students analyze memorials and museums from around the country. It's something that you would think maybe would be a little bit less engaging on going out and participating in something. But when I taught that class a year ago, I was so surprised to see students who were going to museums in an hour-and-a-half range. They were taking part in different tours and analyzing how these tours are trying to effectively work. What do the tours add into their narrative, and what do they keep out? They're participating in their local environments, something that you don't often see at other schools and universities around the country. So I think my favorite part about teaching at Middlebury is that students aren't passive actors. Most of the students here, they care about something, they're engaged with something, and it's sort of why Middlebury is the perfect place to be. Thanks.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna do a quick acknowledgement of our panelists as a pause while we transition into our question and answer segment. Thanks again for submitting your great questions, and keep them coming.